Hi, my name is Ryan Hobbs, and my final report is an introduction to solar panel emissions and informative guide for interns at SunPower Corporation. The purpose of my final report is to compare the emissions of solar panel production and the waste to their overall effectiveness. So I want to take into everything from account from gathering the materials to where it's stored in the waste, how long the panels are going to be in use. I want to take it all into account so I can get the most comparative analysis of all this. My target audience here is mechanical engineering students taking on a performance engineering internship role at SunPower Corporation. Now, you don't necessarily have to be a mechanical engineering student to land this role. In this particular role, they take people from many different fields, a bunch of fields of engineering, environmental studies, all of it. But I want to focus on mechanical engineering students in particular because being as one myself, I feel like that's where I'm best going to be able to convey this information to. So in the past 20 years, we've seen major innovations in the field of solar energy, but despite this, we still have a lot of obstacles we have to overcome. I mean, we're seeing governments around the world pour millions, if not billions of dollars of R&D into this. So it's a field that's really growing in the future. So I think it's a place a lot of engineering students are going to be looking into. And I really wanted to focus particularly on the performance engineering internships here because they get a lot of hands-on field work with the R&D portion of all this. So they're going to be the ones who are going to get a lot of use from this information. So the methods. It's kind of hard to find credited information for this because, I mean, this is energy we're talking about. It's an area that's very profitable. There's a lot of money coming into it from a lot of different places. So when you're looking for credible research on this, you have to be careful when looking at all these independent studies that you're not finding someone who maybe will have ties with some certain company or, there's no conflicting interests here because, as I said, there's a lot of money in this industry here. So I found most of my sources through Google Scholar. And I really wanted to focus on departments of energy around the world, various nations, many universities, and the research that they've been doing on this kind of stuff, because those are the kind of places that you're going to find, you don't really have many conflicts of interest with those particular things because there's not a lot of profits to be made with the energy itself. So that's where I really was focusing on getting my methods from. So my findings, and first what I was really wanting to do this report on in general was the emissions from production and disposal, which has been the hot button issue with all this and really the con. Fracking's been a big thing in the news lately, getting lithium ion about how much is that hurting the environment and the surrounding area. So this is one of the more hot button issues of the topic. But the thing that makes it toxic waste here is there's a large amount of crystalline silicon in solar panels. And this gives off a byproduct called silicon tetrachloride. Now, the problem here is that silicon tetrachloride is highly toxic to animals, plants, humans in particular. It doesn't take very long to be exposed to this stuff to really cause some damage for somebody or the environment around it. Now, the good news with this is it has a pretty short half-life. The half-life normally is only about 4 hours in itself. So if we're just getting rid of this and we're keeping it contained in a certain area, for the most part, the toxicity of it's going to go down incredibly on its own. But there is one big pro to it that's really going to help environmental factors, and it's something I focused on a lot in this report, was that whenever it's being doused down with something with a neutral pH level, so water, a half-life can go down to only about a second. And that is obviously a significant increase whenever you're talking about dealing with toxic waste. So I really focused a lot on that and the innovations that hazardous waste companies have been using to deal with this and some ways we can better improve it. I'm not qualified to talk about how we can better improve things, seeing as I'm just a student myself. So I'm really talking about what these companies are able to do and what they've been looking into and the pros and cons of all of that. But we're seeing ways that we can better handle this toxic waste. So it's a good sign right there. Next is the efficiency issues. And first and foremost, obviously, there are flaws with the concept of solar power itself. I mean, The main flaw is that obviously it can only be gathered during the daytime. So at night, cloudy days, inclement weather, areas with high pollution, you're not going to get as efficient. You're not going to get as, the solar cells aren't going to be able to operate as efficiently. If you look down at this illustration I have in the bottom left-hand corner, it's the solar capacity factor. You can see where solar panels are in good use, where they can be really effective and where you can get the most use out of them. And that's obviously going to be in the Southwest, places like New Mexico, Arizona, sunny California, where you don't so much have to deal with inclement weather. But when you look, and this is just the United States, this isn't even taking into account the whole world. Once you look more up into the New England area, solar panels don't have hardly any efficiency at all. They're not necessarily useless, but not exactly worth your money in there. And the Silver Evans study I looked at on here even says in most of the United States, wind turbines have a much higher capacity factors than solar panels. When we've seen some problems with wind turbines lately with the outages in Texas, but that's not what this is going to focus on. We're just looking at solar power here. So the next problem is finding storage for these solar powers. And the problem here is coming from fracking and mining lithium, which is not the best, cleanest process we have right there. It involves a lot of water that allegedly is getting brought into these South American villages, because that's where a large part of where we mine lithium is at. So we got to find a better way, or at least a more productive method of fracking, where getting all this lithium in order to be able to store when we can't gather at night, it's not going to be affecting the environment as well, and especially surrounding villages. That's what we really don't want to see. So the work remaining I got to do on this is I feel like I need to revise my work a little bit better to connect more with my target audience, especially in my conclusion. I feel like that's where it's really weak, is I'm having a hard time really bringing it back around to the performance engineering interns. I feel like I got a lot of good data there, but I need to find a way to bring it back towards them. I would like to find some more graphs and illustrations to put in there just to give some more visual aid. And I really would like to find a way to bring it back to SunPower Corporation more. You know, I've found a lot about it in other places. I found some about SunPower Corporation, but there's not as much comparative analysis in there as I want. Still got a little time to work on it, so I'm not too stressed out about that. But that's where I'm at right now, and thank you for listening.